Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Zahra al-Jabri here for another episode of Spiritual Lessons from Harry Potter. And we are on Book 2, Chamber of Secrets, chapters 5 and 6. This is episode 12. And if you are new here, I am Zahra, a spiritual coach that supports you to connect deeper with Allah so that you will feel and experience Allah's love, support, and blessings in your life, to have more love, abundance, peace, joy, happiness, all the good things. If you want to get married, improve your career, that's what I do. That's what I do. And we are using Harry Potter as a tool for us to extract great lessons that we can use in our life so that we will be able to understand how to navigate the challenges, the situations, the family members, the work situations, all of it that comes up in our life, because we learn best through stories. And I happen to love this story. And so I've learned so much from it myself, and I'm sharing it with you. So with that, let's get on my Harry Potter glasses and let us dive into chapter 5, which is titled Whomping Willow, of Chamber of Secrets. All right, so Harry is at the Weasleys for the rest of summer break, and now it's time to go back to school. And they have to go to, King's Cross, to take the train to get to Hogwarts. And so they are driving the car, the car that Ron and his brothers flew to pick up Harry. Now they're going to be driving it to London to get to King's Cross. And Mr. Weasley has bewitched the car so that it is like super huge and spacious inside, that, it's like a bench across that it can fit all, I can't keep track of how many there are, but like over 10 people in this little Ford. And I love this line that Miss Weasley says. She's like, you have to, like, what did she say? The Muggles do know more than we give them credit for. I mean, you'd never know that it was this roomy from the outside, would you? And I just think that's so cute how J.K. Rowling is taking like a common phrase like that we all say about kids. Oh, wow, it's really roomy on the inside, but it's like exaggerated here for effect, because it's been bewitched. All right, a real spiritual lesson. Okay, so they take the car, they get to King's Cross. Everyone's going through to platform 9 3/4, which you have to get through, if you remember from, maybe it's like episode 3. You have to walk right into the barrier between platforms 9 and 10, and you magically pass through to get to platform 9 3/4. So all of the Weasley family has gone through. Ron and Harry are the last two to go through, and as they attempt to go through, the barrier is closed and they bounce off a wall. And so they cannot get through. And if they cannot get through, they cannot take the train. If they can't take the train, they can't get to Hogwarts. So they naturally start freaking out. Why has the barrier closed? What's going on? What should we do? And they almost immediately, Ron suggests for them to take the flying car. They're like, oh my God, we're in trouble. What should we do? Don't know. Take the car. Okay. So I'm just pointing out that there wasn't much thought put into it. They just decide to immediately address their problem. And the spiritual lesson here is like, don't freak out. Don't freak out when things occur. Like, try to have that cool level head and try to consider your options, right? And in this case, we will see what unfolds from this immediate jump to a solution. So they take the car, and at first it's like amazing, like, oh my gosh, we are flying to Hogwarts. We're up in the clouds. The views are beautiful. They're driving over London, flying over London, like it's amazing. But after a while, as anyone who's been on a long road trip knows, you get sick of being in the car, and so they're up in the sky, and they start to get really hot. They don't have any food. They had like some candies, and now they're thirsty and they don't have any water. And then as it starts to get darker, now they're getting cold, and so they're putting back on their sweaters. And it's a very, very long drive, right? It's like, I don't know, it seems like it's 8 hours, because I think he said like 6 hours in and then like several hours later. So it's like this 8-hour long flying car journey where, there's no gas station to stop at. So now they finally are getting, and I'm pointing that out because it'll connect to something later. Finally, they are getting close to Hogwarts, and the engine begins to whine. And it says, they both pretended not to notice the whining growing louder and louder as the sky became steadily darker. Right. And this point is like, sometimes we, of course, all can have had the experience of like, this is not good. The situation that we're in, or the trajectory we are going towards, is not good, right? The car is getting tired. We need to, it's not going to last much longer, but they're pretending that they don't hear it because they don't know what to do, right? They're kids. They don't know what to do. They don't feel like they have many alternatives. They don't have many other options. But there's a looming problem coming. And this is a reflection point, again, for all of us, like that when we have those moments of like a looming problem coming, it is one, it's fight, flight, or freeze. One of the responses is to kind of freeze, and the freeze of like ignoring it and pretending, and hopefully, the freeze of like, if an animal's trying to attack you, if I freeze, maybe they won't notice me, and maybe this thing will pass by me, right? So like they've frozen by ignoring it, like, well, what should we do? And they don't know. So anyways, the car engine does eventually give out. They're at Hogwarts, so they just kind of navigate this crash landing that lands them right into a tree, and they crash into the tree, and then the tree starts hitting them, and they're like, oh my God, now the tree's attacking us. The car manages to turn its engines on. The car on its own turns its engine on, backs out of the tree, throws them out of the car, right? Like tips their seats out of the car and expels their luggage out of the car, and then like slinks off into the Forbidden Forest. And Ron is like, oh my gosh, like, can you believe our luck? Like we of all the trees we could have hit, we landed on the one that could hit back. And this point about luck, right? Like sometimes you feel like I'm already in a bad situation, and then like, why did it have to get worse, right? Why did it have to, this additional bad thing happen? I'm already crash landing my car, and now I'm getting hit by this tree. Is so relatable, right? That like something already is not going right, and now even more is not going right. And again, in one of my coaching programs, I talk about the short-sightedness of us as humans in general, right? Our short-sightedness, like we see events, kind of situationally, individually, and we judge them. That was good. This was good. That was bad. And we judge each thing, but we don't have a long-term view. And it's only in hindsight, after whatever things, and like, oh, well, it wasn't necessarily that bad that this happened then and that this happened then. And what I thought was good was maybe just neutral or whatever. We can only make a better assessment, right, when we have more distance between us and the event. So here, this feeling of like, oh my gosh, like what bad luck that this thing happened to us. And we are going to see later in the story, we're going to circle back to this point about the car and all of that. And I will tell you that lesson. I will round out that lesson later, right? So if you can't tell that I'm encouraging you highly to read the books, I'm encouraging you highly to read the books. really so fun, such fun stories, and so many lessons. Okay, so now they like are going back up to the castle. They're trying to get into, you know, what is it? The sorting ceremony so that they can eat something, so they can get warm. And Snape finds them, and it's like, and he's asking them about the car, like, oh my God, how does he know? And he's like, you were seen, like, your car was spotted. Muggles saw you, and like, Muggles reported seeing a flying car. And it's, again, it's here just like not thinking through the implications of their actions, which again is a common thing that we do, not even having the awareness or the perception. In this case, they could have had the awareness or perception that they might be seen. But for us, there's sometimes cases where like implications of what we do, like we could not have foreseen them. We could not have anticipated, and some things that we could have anticipated. So just to keep in mind, right, that sometimes, someone may approach us, or we may find out later, like, oh, when you did that, like it really inspired me to this, or when you did that, it really hurt me to that. And we can kind of feel like, we can feel good about how we inspired someone, and we can feel bad about how, we made someone else feel bad or whatever. But you want to try and create some distance between you and kind of the reaction to those things, but also for you to have more awareness that there are implications for everything that you do, whether you will find out about them or not, right? Like, there's a lot of like quotes and things on all over the place about like, you might have been someone's sunshine, you might have brightened someone's day. And it's so true. It really is true. You don't know how you smiling at the barista or you holding the door open for someone, how that may have impacted and how that may have affected them. The same way you don't know how other decisions, how other behaviors may have hurt someone. You don't know, right? So to keep in mind that no man is an island, and that your actions, your activity, your behavior, it all does have ripple effects. Okay, so their car was seen, and now they are in trouble. They are in trouble for crashing into the Whomping Willow, for not getting on the Hogwarts Express, for driving a flying car as underage wizards. So Snape calls Professor McGonagall because Professor McGonagall is the house leader for the Gryffindors, and since Harry and Ron are in Gryffindor, she's the one who will determine what their punishment is. And they also call Professor Dumbledore, and that feels very heavy. As we hear the story from Harry's standpoint, so we're hearing how Harry is feeling, or it's the narrator is diving more into Harry's standpoint. So how Harry feels like so embarrassed, so crushed that like Dumbledore is disappointed in him. But they're like trying to explain like the barrier closed, we didn't know what to do. And Professor McGonagall is like, well, couldn't you have sent an owl? I see like, Hedwig is here with you. And they're like, oh, yeah, we could have. We weren't thinking. She's like, obviously, that's clear that you weren't thinking. And again, how I started, right? Their immediate thing was like, oh, we can drive, right? Without thinking through. I mean, they gave it a little bit of thought, but without like considering other alternatives and other options. And one of the options could have been to send an owl. And for us to allow ourselves those, and it doesn't mean that you sit around, deliberating for a long time in a pressing situation. It could just be an extra 30 seconds of like, what are all my options? What are all the alternatives? Is there any other way that I could go about this? To just allow yourself to not have that knee-jerk reaction. Okay. Where are we now? So they're afraid that they're going to get expelled, but they don't. Snape is like hoping that they'll get expelled, but McGonagall gives them detention. And then she has food available for them in Snape's office, which is where they are, instead of going to the Great Hall. And Harry's like, oh man, I wish we could have gone. And Ron says, she didn't want us showing off, Ron says sagely. Doesn't want people to think it's clever arriving by flying car. And here that point, that note of like, basically they were shown mercy, right? They were shown mercy to not be expelled. And so to be humble in that mercy, to recognize like, okay, thank you. You've shown me mercy and I'm going to accept this, and not like go flaunting your mercy around, at least not initially. So they're eating in Snape's office and not flaunting it. However, then now they're trying to get back up into their dormitory, into the Gryffindor Tower, but they realize they do not know the password because, they've missed everything. But in this case, it says, but help came almost immediately. And I just thought that line was such an interesting contrast, right? From when the barrier closed on them and they were like panicked and didn't know what to do and had to come up with a plan on the spot, versus here, they can't get into the dormitory. And if you don't have the password, you could be sitting around for a while. But help came almost immediately. That there's sometimes that things happen to us and the help will come almost immediately. Almost immediately. I thought I lost my wallet, or, I think whatever. And like immediately someone, I got you, or this and that, and the help will come immediately. So there's those instances too. And you want to really be grateful for them and lean into them and appreciate them, and also allow yourself to remember them in the times when it feels like help isn't coming quickly. Because again, that might be an indication like, how can I slow down and look around more at what is available to me? Because maybe there is help close by, but I'm so like consumed by like, this is an emergency that I don't see the help. I don't see the opportunities. Right. And Hermione, when she finds out that she's like, there's rumors that you guys flew a car here. And they're like, yeah, we did. And she's like, what? Like, she's basically about to like, kind of scold them. But they go right into the Gryffindor common room. And when they get in the common room, like everyone's in there cheering and celebrating for them. Like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. Like, how cool is that you guys drove a car? Even Fred and George, like, why didn't you guys invite us? Like, we would have driven with you. Like, what a grand entrance. You guys are the man, right? Basically like fist bumps, high fives all around. Like, you guys are incredible. They can see Ron's older brother, Percy, coming towards them with like an angry face. So like, instead of like getting too caught up in like everyone being excited for them, they go up to their rooms, and it says Ron grinned guiltily at Harry. I know I shouldn't have enjoyed that or anything, but right. And it's that feeling of like, oh my gosh, how people responded to me, right? They had their own experience of what happened, right? They couldn't get through. They were scared. They decided to take a car. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Then, oh my gosh, we're super tired. We're hungry. We're cold. And oh my gosh, our car is crashing and this is very scary. Oh my gosh, we're being beat up by a tree. And then, okay, we made it out. Okay, phew, we can go to the Great Hall and get food. Oh no, we've been caught by Professor Snape. Oh no, we're going to get expelled, right? So they're having this whole range of emotions, right? And then Hermione's annoyed at us. And then get into this room and like, everyone's excited for them. So now there's the moment of elation. And for me, it just reminded me of how people's reaction to something we've done or did or made or, created or produced or whatever can sometimes also like color our perception of what it was, right? The whole experience had a lot of ups and downs, and towards the end was a lot of downs, right? That like they crashed, they were getting beat up, they thought they were going to be expelled, they have detention, Hermione's mad, like it's a lot of downs. But now this moment of like everyone's excited for you could color it like, oh yeah, that was a really cool thing we did. We're so, whatever. We're so awesome. And that they call this, what did they call this? It can be called like the audience's gaze, like an audience's gaze on you and feeling their gaze of like praise or admiration or, excitement for you can now make you want to perform to that gaze. That now you want to, okay, they thought that was cool. Like, what else can I do that's cool, right? And I mean, this is just a common thing, right? Like, if you remember high school or if you remember whatever, it's just a common thing that you will be like performing for, like, oh, people thought that was funny. Like, that's how comedians are born. You thought that was funny. Like, let me try this joke or let me try this antic. Or you think I'm that, bad boy rebel image or whatever, like, let me do more bad boy things. And how you can get trapped into a persona if you get caught up in the audience's gaze, right? So this didn't happen to Harry and Ron in this situation. But again, we're extracting spiritual lessons. The spiritual lesson here for us is to just note how the whole experience of theirs was all these different emotions, but now how this kind of event of how people perceive them could color them, color how they remember it. And basically this risky move, you might think, ooh, let me take another risk. So just something to be aware of or to watch out for, or even to watch in your reaction to how you react to people. Is your reaction like supporting them to make healthy, sane, good, sensible, reasonable choices? Or is like your reaction like, oh yeah, do that again. Oh yeah, like that was so funny. Or yeah, are you encouraging them to like feed into, some caricature? Okay, and that's the end of that chapter. Someone asked if I'm Muslim. I am Muslim. Can you see my hijab? That's a very interesting question. This is just a side note. When people ask if you're Muslim and you're wearing hijab, I don't know. Are there a lot of people who don't wear hijab who are Muslim? Or is it being black because I'm black? Or is it because I'm talking about Harry Potter? There's a lot to unpack there. We could probably do a whole podcast on that. But I am Muslim, yes. Okay, chapter 6 is called Gilderoy Lockhart. Okay, forgive me all for if I pronounce a lot of things incorrectly. Like, for most of my life, these names have all just lived in my head. I don't say them out loud that much. So I am saying them out loud and I don't know how to pronounce them. Okay, Professor Lockhart, we will say, is the name of this chapter. All right, so it's the next day. They're having breakfast. The owls are coming in, and Ron gets a red letter from his mother, which is called a howler. And we don't know what it is initially, but Ron is looking at it in terror, and Neville across from him is like, oh my gosh, I've received a howler before. You better open it. Don't try to ignore it. It's worse, right? He said it's worse if you ignore it. And this is kind of, that moment when you're like facing the music, right? Like, oh no, I have to deal with people's reactions to what I've done. And so basically Ron's mom has sent this screaming letter, this letter that screams about, oh my God, when you took the car, blah, 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 all this stuff. And if you don't open the letter, first when he got it, it already starts smoking and like, being like an angry letter, but it's going to become worse. And that's just, again, when we don't deal with things right away, they tend to get worse, right? And we see that so much in movies. Someone tells like a small lie, and instead of just, coming clean, my kids are watching Aladdin, right? Like that's Aladdin, right? She asks him on the flying carpet, I know it's you. I know it's you, Aladdin. When he says the line, what, like, do you trust me? She's like, I knew it was you. He's like, and he tells a small lie. Oh, no, it's not me. And now all the things he has to do to cover up that lie when he could have just come clean. And when he has the opportunity to come clean, he misses it and it just grows and gets bigger. So this is just similarly, right? That Ron now has to face the music, and the temptation is to put it off. How can I put it off? In this case, it's a letter that screams. So he's just going to open it and feel the shame and embarrassment of the whole school hearing his mom yell at him. And if he doesn't, it's going to be worse. And so just face what you need to face. It'll be painful, but if you wait, if you try to delay, if you try to ignore, if you try to manipulate your way out of it, if you try to tell small fibs around it, it will be worse. So just deal with the pain, shame, embarrassment, humiliation, whatever, the emotion of the lesser thing, instead of dealing with those same emotions on a larger scale and possibly even more complication. And Hermione, then, who had been still annoyed at them because obviously when the night before the whole common room had been so, excited for them. It says, after this, right, at least the Howler had done one good thing. Hermione seemed to think that they had now been punished enough and was being perfectly friendly again. And this point, there's so much within this point. And I can't get into all of it now, but in my coaching programs, we go more into this. But this point in my coaching program, Limitless Love, my premier coaching program, Limitless Love, because this is a heavy thing and it's not in any of my smaller coaching programs. But it basically is talking about guilt, right? Guilt and shame. Like you've made a mistake. You've made a mistake, and I want you to feel the punishment of your mistake. And when it's between friends, like how can I help you feel that punishment, or a parent and child is like, I'm going to scold you, or I'm going to let you know, or I'm going to be teaching you differently, or I'm going to no, you don't get a cookie, or, talking about like parent child. You want them to experience that what they did was wrong by how you are treating them. So Hermione now is like, okay, they have been punished enough, so I can be friendly again with them. And so just for you to keep in mind for yourself how much this is coming up for you in your own life. If you are annoyed with someone, and what's your punishment to them? I'm not gonna call them, or my friend didn't come through for me, I'm not gonna come through for her. Like, what is the punishment? How are you trying to punish another? And when do you feel that they've had enough? Because when you can look at it from how you're doing it to others, just note that's how much punishment also that you will expect or self-inflict when you do something wrong. Like we also punish our own selves, right? Like until we feel like, okay, that was bad and I deserve to whatever, not have this or force myself to do that because of this bad thing that I did. Self-inflict that punishment. And what I'm saying, which I don't have time to get into, is all of that is unnecessary. All of that is unnecessary. All of that is unnecessary. People make mistakes, and how can we forgive them? How can we forgive ourselves? Quickly, easily, with more grace, and extend that grace all around. And if you want to get deeper in that, because the guilt and shame around all of that can be hindering your life in so many ways, then consider Limitless Love, my premier coaching program, which goes deep on a whole bunch of things. All right. Where are we now? Right, checks notes. Okay. So now, what happened? Harry, what happened? Oh, yes, Lockhart. I'm like, what was this note? Sorry, guys. Professor Lockhart catches up to Harry before one of his classes and is like, Harry, I'm so sorry that, you had a taste of fame when you and I took a picture together at the bookstore and you got on the front page of the Daily Prophet. And now you're doing these stunts to try and get more attention. Like, you need to calm down. Don't do that. And Harry is like looking at him like, what is this guy talking about? Like, that's not at all what I'm doing. But the lesson here, right, is that people will perceive you based on their own stuff, right? So Lockhart is someone who is attention seeking, who wants attention. So he is perceiving Harry now and what he's doing through the lens of himself. Harry also is seeking attention and wanting attention. And this is so important for us to really appreciate. If you've read the 4 agreements, right, is like, don't take things personally is one of the agreements. And it's because people are projecting themselves onto you and onto situations. So when you're reacting to them like, oh my gosh, like, how could they think that? Or what is it? It's not about you. Don't think things personally. It's about them. Lockhart loves attention. And so he thinks that's what Harry's doing. So it's just a beautiful illustration of that Lockhart is seeing what he wants to see, right? How he is in other people's behavior. And Harry, because that's not what he's doing, or that wasn't his motivation, is like just thrown off by this. Okay. And then it comes up again the next time. Now, one of the new first years comes up to Harry, and his parents are muggles, and he wants to be sending pictures back to his family about everything that's going on in Hogwarts and all the things he's learning. He's like, Harry, can I take a picture of you, like, so I can prove to my parents that I've met you? And Lockhart overhears this. He's like, and this boy, his name is Colin. Colin asks Harry, and then would you sign it? So Lockhart's like, oh, you're doing signed photos now, Harry? Like, oh, this is too much. This is too early in your career. You don't need to do that now. Again, perceiving himself in Harry's behavior. And now Harry is like feeling extra embarrassed and is like, this is not what I'm doing. Like, stop associating me with you. And then we get towards the end of the chapter, and the students now finally have their first class with Professor Lockhart, and he is the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. And initially, to start, he has them like take this quiz that is just all about himself, and they're like, what's going on? Which even more cements them in like, this guy is just very self-absorbed. And then he's like, okay, we're going to be dealing with terrifying creatures and things here in Defense Against the Dark Arts. And he has a cage that's covered, and he lifts up over the cover, and it's these tiny pixies. And they're like, what? Like, these are not scary. But they are creatures that like wreak a lot of havoc. So he's like, oh, you don't think they're scary? So he opens the cage and lets them all loose. And these pixies like just destroy the room. Like, they're like, oh, they make more of a mess than like if a rhinoceros had gone through the room, like throwing things, ripping things, cutting things, hanging students up by their, on the chandeliers, just making this huge mess. And then, then finally towards the end he's like, okay, class, deal with them, trying to round them up. And the class cannot, they're all hiding under their desks. And then Lockhart's like, does a spell to get them to stop, and his spell doesn't work, and the pixies take his wand and throw it out the window. And then the bell rings, and everyone's trying to leave because like the classroom is chaos and madness. And Harry, Ron, and Hermione are the last 3 to be about to leave the classroom. And Lockhart turns to them. He's like, okay, why don't you lot finish this up? And Ron is like, what? Like, we can't. And Lockhart just leaves. And Hermione said, or I'm just going to read you this part. Ron's like, can you believe him? And Hermione says, he just wants to give us some hands-on experience. And she's able to immobilize 2 of the pixies and put them in a cage. Hands-on, said Harry. Hermione, he didn't have a clue what he was doing. Rubbish, said Hermione. You've read his book. Look at all these amazing things he's done. He says he's done, Ron muttered. And here, it is so apparent and so clear, at least to Ron and Harry, from Lockhart's behavior and demeanor, that he doesn't know what he's doing, that he doesn't know how to manage these pixies or like much, it makes them distrustful of anything else. Like, who is this guy? He just cares about himself. But Hermione, who is having faith in his books and the stories about what he's written, is like, oh, no, he can do it. And I just want to point out, make this point, because I often get asked, and I'm going to make a video about this separately, but I often get asked, especially when it comes to relationships and talking to someone, because, you know, my husband and I have written a book on with over 150 questions for you to ask when you're talking with someone, and a guide for how to have the conversations, have a meaningful conversation so you can get to know a person and determine, is this a good life partner for me? Would it be wise for me to get married to them? And so often we hear back, these questions are great, right? Like these would bring up a lot of good points and help me see if I'm compatible. But what about if they're lying? What about if they're lying? You know, if they lie to me, I would have asked all the right questions, but then I could still end up, oh man, like totally fooled. And what I'm trying to say to you, and Lockhart is a clear example, right? The way he started class, let me go back. The way he started class. Is he picks up his book of himself and he says, Gilderoy Lockhart, me, Order of Merlin, 3rd class, honorary member of the Dark Forces Defense League, and a 5-time winner of Witches Weekly's Most Charming Smile Award. But I don't talk about that. I didn't get rid of Brandon Banshee by smiling at her. Okay, so he's listing off his credentials. And what do we do when we are courting and, talking to people? We get their bio data, or they're telling us all of their good things. I have this job. My family's from here. I've gone to this country. I travel like this. I drive this car. I, pray this much. I've done Umrah. I've went to Hajj, whatever. They're listing off their credentials and they're answering your questions. And then you are trying to discern, is what they're saying the truth of who they are? Because you just want to make sure, I don't want to be getting fooled. I don't want to be getting played. And what I am saying to you is if you have the question to yourself, what if they're lying to me? And I'm saying it in this defeatist look, because you are not then empowering yourself that you can discern and see through BS. You can see through BS. BS is easy to see through. BS is easy to see through. Give yourself more credit. You see it at work. You see it with your friends. You see it with colleagues. You see it with coworkers. You know when your boss is incompetent. You know which coworkers are, full of it. You can tell what they say and what they do or how they are do not match up. Do not all of the sudden become thrown off because you were talking to someone for marriage, that you will somehow not be able to tell when someone's behavior and action and words are not in alignment, that is causing you to think something is off here. You will be able to feel it, sense it, hear it, notice it, put together that, like, what? Gilderoy is saying he's this amazing defense against the dark arts person who's done all of this stuff, but then he couldn't even get rid of pixies. This guy has no idea what he's talking about. You can tell. You can tell. And the people who can't tell, Hermione, right? She's like, oh no, he just wants to give us hands-on experience. What is that person engaging in? They are engaging in wishful thinking. She is enamored with the books and the stories of what he's written. She wants it to be true. She wants it to be true, right? But that is eyes wide open, right? You are clearly looking at the situation. If Hermione is immobilizing these pixies and getting rid of them, and the professor couldn't, she knows within herself, she's in denial, but she knows within herself, like, something is off here, but she's trying to make excuses. So if you find yourself trying to rationalize and make excuses for someone, that is you dismissing what you feel and can tell are the incongruencies. Okay? So this question, if you are a person who worries about that, worries about being fooled, my question to you is, when have you been fooled in the past? And if you're like, yeah, this person lied to me or this person tricked me, go back and check in. Did they really fool you, or did you just want to believe that what they were telling you was true? And you wanted it to be true, and you wanted it to be true, so you pretended it was true, even though you could tell it's not really true. But I think it is. Gilderoy just wants us to have hand-on experience. He's just trying to, like, show us a different way. just making excuses. Okay? This is such an important lesson for anyone talking to someone and anyone who worries about that. And I know, we know that there's F-boys out there and douchebags and liars and fakers and manipulators and catfishers. I know that that's true. But I also know that you are a divine, amazing, incredible being who can see through that. And you need to trust yourself that you can. All right. That last part, if there's any guys listening, it can happen to you too. Sorry that it became very gender specific. So that's how we'll close out this episode of Spiritual Lessons from Harry Potter. Again, I'm Zahra El-Jabri. I am a spiritual coach supporting you to have a life of more love, peace, and abundance by deepening your faith and connecting to Allah. Catch me next time. Assalamu alaikum.